Yeah. What do you have to say about the prompt?
Okay, perfect. So before we engage, do you accept clarity questions?
Do I accept what?
Clarity questions. Because I know a lot of these lives where they don't want to accept clarity questions and they want to just get right into it. But I just want to ask a couple of questions.
Are you asking me if I accept that you can ask me clarifying questions?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, perfect. So my first question is, when you say pro-choice is irrational, are you saying that an agent who gets an abortion is not doing so on the basis of proper reasons? Because that's what I take irrationality to be.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And on the contrary claim, are you saying that within the moral domain, there are such things as proper reasons?
How is that contrary?
Well, it's not contrary, but I'm saying like as a separate claim. As a separate claim here, I said contrast. As a separate claim.
What again?
Yeah. Are you saying that within the moral domain, there is such thing as proper reasons?
Am I saying that in the moral domain that there is such things as proper reasons? Is that your question?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What do you mean by moral? What do you mean by domain?
Yeah, by domain here, we're just talking about the object domain query. So
you're asking me when people inquire about morality, do I think that there are proper reasons to act in a certain kind of way and then improper reasons to act in a certain kind of way? Is that what you're asking me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think there's going to be like a proper way to act, for example, in like, let's say if you're having sex with somebody, and there's going to be an improper way to act when it comes to those types of circumstances. So yes, I do agree that those types of reasons exist in the moral domain.
Okay, cool. So if it's the case that there is no such proper reasons,
if it's the case that there is no such proper reasons, I just said there are those proper reasons. So why would you say?
How I'm getting a conditional here, right? So it's which
I'm just making a
clarification.
Potentially, that's all.
If it's the case that there are no such thing as proper reasons and there's no such thing as improper reasons, then pro-choice and pro-life are both going to be the kind of theses which are malformed relative towards the object.
Do you believe the consequence
is just,
Do you believe the consequence of that conditional statement that you just gave? Do you believe that it's true?
I believe in the antecedent and the consequent.
So what would be the truth conditions for both the antecedent and the consequent of a conditional sentence in order for it to be true?
I don't understand the relevance. All we need to say that the relevance is true is just to say that.
Wait, hold on a second. You don't understand the relevance, so I'll explain the relevance. I think that's fair.
Well,
right?
I wasn't finished speaking. I was speaking on a matter of fact.
Yeah, but you're saying I don't understand the relevance, so I'm
but
just
there's further that needs to be said here, which is just that all sets needed for a material conditional
I don't know why
is just that there's a truth functional relationship between the antecedent and consequent.
So now you're answering my question? I thought you didn't want to answer the question.
You were asking for the truth conditions of the antecedent and the consequent, but I'm specifically talking about the entire conditional. Right? And all that needs to be said is that
a conditional is made up of an antecedent and a consequent. So when you talk about the conjunction of both those things, that's just what a conditional is.
But the antecedent and consequent are just the
I don't know. Why did you treat it as a
conditional?
Hold on, let me just ask.
Made up.
Cap. Let's not have this type of dialogue. Let's not have this type of dialogue where we're talking over each other. Okay. I want you to get a chance.
I mean, you were kind of talking over me.
To be clear, yeah, that's fair. I did talk over you, but are you saying that I'm saying something different when I ask you for the truth conditions of both the antecedent and the consequent of some conditional? Is that something relevantly different from just asking what makes a conditional sentence true?
Yeah, that is something different because the truth conditions of the material conditional are distinct from the truth conditions of the atomic propositions within the conditional.
Okay.
Right, and I take the antecedent and the consequent to just be the atomic propositions.
But what do you think the truth conditions would be if you take the conjunction of the atomic propositions which make up the antecedent and then the atomic propositions which make up the consequent? What would be the
that's just to say that both. If you're asking me for the truth condition of the conjunction of the atomic propositions, that would just be to say that both the propositions and the conjunct are true. That's
which means that which means that the conditional would be true, correct?
No, that's
hold on a second. So what do you think makes a conditional true?
When there's a true functional relationship between the antecedent and consequent, such that the truth of the antecedent guarantees. Yeah, the truth of the antecedent guarantees the truth of the consequent. But I think
they're both true, right?
No, and that's just to say that if...
Hold on a second. In order for the consequent to be the case, the antecedent has to be the case, correct?
We're not talking about if the consequent is the case. We're talking about if the entire conditional is the case. I don't know what you're saying.
Let's go back to the actual conditional claim that you made.
Let's get back on this testing.
So repeat back the conditional claim that you made to me previously. Go ahead.
If it's the case that there are no such thing as proper reasons, and it's the case that there are no such thing as improper reasons in the moral domain, then both the pro-choice and pro-life positions are malformed within the conceptual scheme. And then you just affirm the antecedent, the conjunct in the antecedent, and you follow modus ponens. And then from there, the proposition in the background, which is that pro-choice is irrational, is a malformed proposition.
Okay. So what would be the argument that you have supplementary for the first premise of that argument?
Yeah. So we just take positional anti-realism Specifically, the token we're going to be taking is the ad infinitum version, where we're just kind of deflating the commitments embedded within the inferential framework and say that these aren't the type of things which obtain. You might understand this thesis to be similar to saying something
So
along the
before you
lines of,
ramble on about like this thing that you've already
you
had.
were just complaining about interrupting, and now you're interrupting.
I think it's important. I think it's important to interrupt when there needs to be clarity about what you're saying, right? So instead of like you rambling on about your definition of what provisional anti-realism is, I would instead prefer if we. What'd you say?
Positional.
Positional? Did you say provisional or positional?
Positional. Positional.
Okay. So in order for me to understand what your view of positional anti-realism is, I need to step in and ask you a couple of questions. Is that okay?
Yeah. What's your question?
Wonderful. Okay. You're saying that you're just going to deflate the commitments within the inferential scheme. So let's just sort of disambiguate what this means. What is an inferential scheme? I just take that to be some sort of, let's just say, some sort of like totality of propositions or commitments, attitudes, ideas, stuff like this, which are going to be connected by like some chain of inferences. Is this what you mean?
No, because you can have other things embedded outside of just propositions.
I didn't stipulate propositions as like a necessary feature of an inferential scheme. So why are you denying that as if that was my claim?
So then it's non-informative to say that it's a network of propositions that we use.
That was not all I said. I said much more.
Yeah, but the point is just that that's non-informative in the sense that doesn't provide a necessary.
What you said is not informative, but that's not what I said. So who are you attacking here exactly? Because you just kind of said something that I didn't say, and then you're saying that it's not informative. I don't understand here.
Well, it's not informative to talk about propositions just wholesale when we give it a strict definitions of the inferential framework. Right. Okay, so I'm going to give you an actual definitions now, and then
I don't understand. So you're not really attacking what I'm saying here.
Dialectic.
So yeah, I prefer if you didn't do that because I prefer if you actually attack what I just said. So what I'm telling you right now, Cap, is that you are saying something. Okay, just listen to me very carefully. What you just said that I said is incorrect. I did not.
So you didn't talk about propositions.
I didn't say that I didn't talk about propositions. My claim
my point is that
so notice how stop. I have to mute you now because what you're doing is you're interrupting me, like literally strategically, right? Because you don't want the audience to hear the other part of what I'm saying to make you look better optically, right?
Okay.
So stop doing that and just doing the strategic interruption thing. It's just not working. Okay. So what I'm saying is I'm not denying that I didn't say the word proposition. What I'm saying is that I did not define an inferential scheme in such a manner where proposition was a necessary feature of it. Now, notice how, recalling back to your response, you said, no, you don't agree with my characterization of what a conceptual scheme is, which in case you forgot what I said, what my description was again, just some totality of ideas, statements, propositions, attitudes, you might even add like intellectual apparatuses. It could include a variety of things, but just the totality of all of those things, which are going to be then connected by like a series of inferences. You said you denied this and then you're about to argue as to why you don't think propositions is like a defining feature of what an inferential scheme. So do you understand how that's literally talking past me? Or do you not understand that?
From what I just understood, it's not exactly talking past you because...
Okay. Sure, I'll let you make your case, so go ahead.
Yeah. So the point was just that, and I understand you want to do this thing where you time hog, it's fine. So I can just do the same thing, it's fine. So the point here is just that talking about propositions when you try to give an idea of what an inferential framework is non-informative in the sense that not only is propositions not going to be some type of necessary condition, or I don't even think it's a sufficient condition, right? Because you can take an expressivist account and just deny that propositions obtain and still have inferential frameworks. But so that's one reason why it's not informative. And then the second reason is just because it's less ideologically parsimonious. Now, by inferential framework, and I'm just going to give you a strict opinion so we can move on to the dialectic, where you're just talking about representation. See how you're doing this thing where you interrupt now? It's because you're now interrupting in the type of way.
Wait, hold on a second.
I just keep that.
Because you're about to move on to a different point. You're about to move on to a different point, so I'm trying to interrupt because I'm stopping you so I can respond to the first point that you made before you move on to another point. Right, that's the more productive version of this conversation.
No, it's not because we're engaged in the talk.
No, it literally is because what you want to do right now is you want to make a point. You want to make a point. And then you made a supplementary, like kind of sub-argument for the point, and then you're like about to introduce a third point, right? That's
let me flag why this is not productive. The reason why this is not productive.
Don't debate me about whether or not you think it's productive. That's going to make the conversation unproductive. In the dialectic,
because you just charged me with saying something that's not productive.
Yeah, but okay, I don't really care to debate.
So the object of inquiry within the dialectic, and I know you're going to mod abuse and pre-clogging the mod abuse. It's fine. The object of inquiry in the dialectic was just going to be to have an idea of what an inferential framework is. If we get the idea of what the inferential framework is,
a recap
then anything that we're saying it's going to be the type of thing which is productive. So I'm going to give you the opinions now so we can proceed.
Okay, so now I'm going to have to mute you because what you're doing is what you're doing. Don't do that.
I pre-clogged it.
Hey, Kay.
You pre-clogged. Hold on, Link. This guy's like, I precogged it. What he's doing is he's literally strategically talking faster, and he's trying to speak over me. And then what he's doing is he's attempting to introduce, you're poisoning the well because you're attempting to handle the strategy. You're making a point in the conversation in response.
You're complaining because I'm strategic in the debate.
Bro, can you stop? Like, can you stop? So what he's doing is essentially he's made a point in response to a point that I made. And then instead of letting me respond to his response, he instead wants to go on to a new point. So I'm just going to respond back to what he said previously. So he says that
so you
like,
complained about
it's going to be
uninformative.
uninformative. Oh my God, stop. He says that it's going to be uninformative for us to define an inferential scheme in such a manner where it even includes in any capacity, is what I interpreted him to be saying, something like propositions. And then he gave examples of expressivists, right, who still have quote unquote inferential schemes, right? Now he poses this claim as if it's like a, this widely accepted claim, and it's like something which is like undoubtedly true, right? But that's just not the case. This is another contentious claim as to whether or not expressivists really do have valid inferential schemes, right? There are people who actually genuinely disagree with this, and they don't take it to be the case that on expressivists' accounts that you can have such things as valid logical inferences, right? So don't prevent me from responding. Don't prevent me from responding to that point, because you're scared of what I'm going to say. So instead, just let me respond. Now, to respond to the second part of what you said, I'm just going to actually read to you what the definition is standardly taken. This is actually from, let's see, an introduction to non-classical logic. And let's see, this is by Graham Priest, very famous logician. And even his definition of an inferential scheme is a pattern of inference, a rule that specifies that if propositions of a certain form are accepted as premises, then a proposition of another form may be inferred as a conclusion. It's a schema because it contains variables that can be replaced by any well-formed formula. Okay, so this is a definition that most logicians, and I just gave you one example. Of course, I'm not going to run through the entire list of logicians who all agree with this definition, but there's at least one example of somebody credible who agrees with my definition of what an inferential scheme is, right? And so now, what's your response? Don't just move on to another point. Just respond to what I said right there.
Yeah, so first of all, you said that it's contentious that expressivists have inferential frameworks, and then you proceeded to give some type of definition of inferential framework. I'm going to dismiss that in virtue of the fact that I am try to charge me with, you're trying to charge me with doing certain things in the dialectic, and you're doing the exact same things. That's what we call projection. It's fine. The second thing is that you said it's contentious that expressivists have inferential frameworks in virtue of the fact that they don't accept propositional variables or well-formed formulas, but that's also going to be dismissed in virtue of the fact that I didn't say that they can have inferential frameworks where there are propositional content or well-formed formulas or anything of the sort. So now I'm going to give you my definition of what an inferential framework is, because I'm the one who invoked the term. So appealing to Graham Priest here is not going to save you, Kojo. By inferential framework here, we're just talking about a network of, you can say, representational categories, rules of inference, and practical norms that we adopt in order to organize experience, form predictions, and even coordinate action. But you're also going to be embedding ontic things within it insofar as your ontic commitments. And all that's being said here, just to get back to the point I brought up earlier, was just that you can hold the anti-positionality and deflate these commitments within your inferential framework such that you don't have positions, and positions in the sense are just stable theses, identity, ontology, epistemology, dogmastic states, value claims, anti-realism, realism, or propositions, but it also extends to meta commitments as well as higher order commitments. So in this sense, you have a version of what's called absolute reductionism. And the motivation for this is really simple.
Wait, I don't need that right now.
I want your thoughts on the thesis.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I don't need that like motivation you're about to give there at the end. I don't need that. So let's just talk specifically about the point that you made. You said something like, I'm the one who invoked the term. I'm not using it in the way that Graham Priest is using it. And so therefore, under my definition, your definition is wrong, is pretty much what you're saying. Now, if you don't, no, hold on a second. You can't say no. And I'll tell you why you can't say no, because you're caught in a trap. Okay. Now, this entire dialogue, this little sub dialogue that we're having over like inferential schemes and whatnot, if you remember, stems from a response of denial from your side, which said that you were not in agreement with my characterization of what an inferential scheme is. And then, so now it seems as if, despite the fact that I presented evidence for credible people who agree with my definition, you then said, right, in support of the denial, that you just take on a different definition, right? Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but for somebody who's talking a lot about things like representationalism, I'm sure you understand what a question, or excuse me, rather, not even a question begging inference, but you understand what a trivial objection is, right? Like objections of the sort where you're going to want to deny like some view just on the basis of the fact that you define terms differently is not going to be something which substantively undermines the opposition. Instead, it just reconfirms the way that you are using language when you are entering into the discussion, right? So if your entire case here for, I guess, whatever you called it, I can't even remember the name of the view that you called it, but if your entire case here is supposed to be that like, oh, once we accept Capp's definition of what an inferential scheme is, which is inconsistent with, by the way, with somebody who's studied logic for several years, right, versus a Discord debater, right? He thinks that we should disregard Graham Priest's understanding of what a inferential scheme is, and instead, for some weird reason, we should accept Capp.KG's definition.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, no, I don't think so, right? There's just no reason. So now I'm going to ask you. Now I'm going to ask you, Cap. Okay. Do you actually have any? No, hold on a second, Cap.
The question's going to be dismissed.
No, Cap. Don't run away.
You can ask the question, but
yeah. So then don't stop me from asking. Don't stop me from asking it, Cap. So then the question now is: do you actually have any like independently corroborated motivation, right? Aside from just assuming your own terms as to why we should accept or use the language in this way?
Very clear. Your question is going to be dismissed for a second in virtue of the fact that you strawmanned what I said. You strawman. I don't know why you're doing this weird thing where you laugh for the outtakes. It's not going to help you. You strawmanned what I said because I did not say that I'm going to be dismissing your definition in virtue of the fact that I invoked the terms. I told you I'm going to be dismissing your definition in virtue of the fact that in the dialectic, you asked me to give some type of understanding of the thesis that I'm invoking, and where I used a term where the definition was just going to be invoked by the agent. Yeah, that is what I said. And also, I told you I'm denying the claim that it's contentious. I told you I'm denying the claim that it's contentious that expressivists have inferential frameworks in virtue of the fact that under my definition, it's not contentious at all, actually, because they can have a network where they have practical. And you're doing the thing where you're strategically trying to interrupt me now, even though you just called me out for doing that same thing. Also, I want to flag that they muted Kylo out of the comments because they were saying that I was beating the shit out of him. And your mods muted him. It's fine. So look, that was a tracking error where you straw man my argument, right? Or you straw man at least something that I said. Now, the second thing is just that if you want an understanding of a thesis that I'm bringing to the table, I think it will be more ideologically parsimonious and beneficial for the substance of the dialectic to use my definitions. Because if we don't use my definitions, then it's not going to be the same thesis that I'm giving you, right? And I don't know why. But it's fine because everybody, when this recording comes out, everybody's going to know that you're getting beat up, and that's okay. So,
okay, are you done now?
Do you agree that? And again, your question was dismissed, so now I'm going to ask you a question. Do you agree that when I'm the one giving a thesis on the table, it will be more beneficial to use my definition so that you know what I mean by a specific thesis? Do you agree with that?
So here's my answer to your question. Yeah, so I don't think it's a yes or no question. I think it's going to depend.
It is a binary question. It's either the case that you agree or you do not. It's either the case that you have a positive dogmatic state or you have 2/3 of the other type of dogmatic states, which just means that you don't agree. So which one is it? Do you agree that it's more beneficial to use my definition when I give you a thesis, or do you not agree, Kojo?
Yeah, I'm going to dismiss your dichotomy because it's false.
You can't dismiss it in virtue of the fact that it's...
but I just did, right? And now you're interrupting.
You can't dismiss
it. So now I'm gonna have to mute you.
Mod abuse.
Mod abuse, even though he's persistently interrupting me.
Mod abuse.
Like mod abuse. Okay,
by the way, I want you guys to unmute Kylo or I'm going to leave this live.
We don't care if you leave. Nobody cares if you leave and you haven't done nothing, right? So just calm down. Before you take your victory lap, let's walk you through why what you're saying is fucking stupid.
I just want to explain why...
No. You're not going to explain anything. You're not going to explain anything. You've already been explaining. So now it's Kojo's turn to respond, right? You wanted to come up here and debate, right? So now we're going to walk you through the gibberish that's coming out of your mouth. Okay, so just relax, calm down. Let's respond to what you said. You're trying to do the rhetoric thing, which basically is an attempt to throw me off my game. But the thing is that I'm hyper-focused on this conversation right now. And I'm not going to forget the point just because you're interrupting me constantly, okay? Cap, do I have to drop you down and then finish my point and then bring you back up? Do I have to do that?
If you drop me, I'm going to take that as a dodge.
Of course you would, because you're searching for a reason to be dropped right now by constantly interrupting me. You're looking for a reason to be dropped.
Okay.
So here's the response to your claim.
I'm not going to stop until you let me explain why you dismissing the question.
I'm not going to let you explain.
It's irrational if you dismiss it.
Why is he doing this?
It's irrational if you dismiss the question.
Why is he doing this?
When you plug it into inferential arrow text.
What did you say, Link?
Can somebody explain to me what's being talked about right now?
Yeah. Give me 1 second. But stop. Just stop. Do you have an offer?
Unmute Kylo and I'll chill. Just unmute Kylo and I'll chill out.
Okay, whatever. Just stop. Like, goddamn. I don't care about Kylo or whoever. I don't give a fuck. Just stop interrupting, my guy. Just calm down. All right. So now here's the response to what you said. Okay. So pretty much you said something along the lines of that you never made the claim that you're denying my definition on the basis of the fact that you have a different one, which, by the way, it's recorded. You did make that claim, but you changed your claim in your new response. And then you went on to say something that you didn't previously say. You were like, oh, because you asked me to provide an analysis of the terms K, that is why I gave my definition. And that's why I'm rejecting yours. And so it would be more beneficial, K, if we just accept my definition, because it will be more beneficial for my argument, K. So why don't you just accept my definition, K? Now here's the issue with here's the issue with what you are saying. Okay. Now, again, you can't say that as to whether or not the claim on if expressivists really do have such things as like valid inferences like within their scheme. You can't say that on the basis of the fact that you define the term inferential scheme differently, that it's not the case that such problem exists. And so this is why I recalled you back. If you remember, I recalled you back to the idea of this being simply nothing over and above a trivial objection. You're saying that there's no problem for expressivists in terms of being able to actually account for things like validity in like standard FOL. And the reason as to why that's the case is because, under the way that I define what an inferential scheme is, then it would not be a problem. Hold on a second, bro. Just stop. I'm almost done. So you're saying apparently that, under my definition of what an inferential scheme is, it just wouldn't be a problem for expressivists to have an inferential scheme. Now, again, this does not substantively demonstrate that there is no such issue. All it does is just say that when Capp uses the term inferential scheme, he's using it in a very specific idiosyncratic way that, again, people like Grand Priest, people of the likes like Grand Priest will simply disagree. Now, I'm going to ask you my question, which again, now you're going to be stripped away of the opportunity to dismiss anything. And if I hear the word dismiss out of your mouth, you're going to be dismissed off my live. So I'm going to ask you this question once, and you get one time to answer the question, which is if you have any independent motivation, right, as to why you think that your dog shit definition of what an inferential scheme is something which is more preferable. I'm not mad. It's something which is more preferable, right, than somebody like Grand Priest definition.
Oh my goodness, I'm hitting the Fortnite dance on your ass. Now, look, again, I don't need to use the word dismiss. I'm just going to say I'm not going to assent to your question. And the reason why.
Okay. You had your chance and you blew it.